Hello, everyone. Kaitlyn, Psychic Moon Mentor here, bringing you another Cosmic Tea Time chat. This is a space where we connect with spiritual entrepreneurs and dive into topics about manifestation, intuition, spiritual practice, and so much more. And today I have a beautiful guest, Tannis. Tannis, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tannis. So thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very excited to hear what exciting things that we're going to share today. So for myself, I'm an intuitive. I've been doing energy work for over 30 some years. I'm one of those people that always hid behind the curtains. So now is the time to shine. And so I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. To mind is sort of the spiritual journey. So I can totally habit of doing that. Really helped me as I got into my 20s out of college, leaning into my passions and for me, my career. And I have a background in exercise science and health coaching, wanting to do that more full force, wanting to live a life where I was more connected with passion and joy. And interestingly enough, for me, that led me into my first spiritual awakening, or one of my earlier spiritual awakenings, where I said, F it, forget it. I'm going to give myself permission to dive into things that I want to do. And one of the first things for me was buying my first tarot deck, which I always thought about as, a teenager and younger person, but didn't give into because of the different stigma that's presented in movies or growing up Christian and being like, oh no, that's the devil or that's bad or what have you. And in my 20s, finally giving myself permission to be like, you know what? Okay, I can discern for myself. If it's bad, I'll know, and then I can stop doing it, right? And so, what was one of the first experiences that you had that helped you lean into spirituality and spiritual practice?
Well, for myself, it was digging deep within and knowing that I had this gift. And 30 years ago, when I had met somebody, actually, it was interesting because I met him online. And then he goes, oh, I do something called Reiki. And so that was the first kind of like tapping into. And so he taught me throughout the years a little bit about it. But then I found that I needed to dig in more. So I went into a lot of different healings. I took a mystery school teaching. I like after that, crystal grid, really kind of seeking and learning and researching. And I found, like, as a light worker, intuitive, all these gifts kind of came into fruition as time went by. And I had to do a little bit of soul searching first. Like, I backpacked in Australia in 1997. I was there. I had some tough hits with relationships. It's like my relationships with men have been very hard over the years. I've always seemed to find the ones that are the opposite of me. And so I think that made me stronger because I had no choice to kind of dig deep within myself because all the hurts and the pains. So that was just like, as that time went by, I was like doing such a deep healing that I found that my intuition was like getting more and heightened. And when I was seeking the people to kind of help me learn throughout, and like some different mentors and things like that. So I found that in time, as I am my age now from what I was back then, right now, I always called myself, it's not, I always did these things called Reiki shots. And it was just something I always went to people, and I have my background in aesthetics and makeup artistry as well. So when you have like beauty and spirituality, I always combine the two together. So that's kind of where I used to go up to someone. I was like, let me massage your hand because they had a headache. And so intuitively, I just like was doing this. And then I said, oh, can I just, always ask for permission? I just did like a little energy hit. And, after years go by, people are still remembering those moments that I actually helped them so long ago. So I know that this stuff works, but I always like hid because I was just at the point where, if you had one or two people that didn't appreciate what you did. So I've just found that it's like easier for me just to hide. But now I realize like my gifts are so evolved and connection to different things after the passing of my father, which was like over a year ago, and that's when things shifted completely for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think spiritual awakening can happen sometimes. Like we've both mentioned a little bit, you choose it, right? It's this curiosity. You want to learn, you want to dive in deeper, and hoping to get closer to the light or joy or passion, or this sort of higher vibrational experience or higher vibrational emotional experience. Certainly, right? Happiness comes to mind.
Yeah.
And there are times when we find it or it finds us in the darkness,
Yeah.
when we
Oh,
really need healing, when we're experiencing, whether it's literally a physical ailment and our body has some disease in it, or a relationship, struggles, and different things like this can open the door for our own healing. And I think it's interesting how they can happen,
yeah.
sort of both ways on either end of the spectrum there.
Oh, 100%. And I think I think for myself, like having these gifts and allowing them to evolve and meet the people that kind of give you that pushback and help. I think that's a big thing for me. I'm all about community and working with others, but also understanding within my own self that I can do this alone too. So we all have the power within ourselves, but for some reason I'm a connector, and I feel like to me it just makes more sense to do this as a unity.
Hmm. Yeah, and collaboration's been a huge topic this year. I don't know about for you, but certainly for myself, it has. Um, and let's see, we brought up so many beautiful points, and I'm like, oh, where do I want to go to next? I think it's interesting how sometimes the practices find you. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but
Yes.
so like I mentioned, I was leaning into my passions. I opened up. Okay, I bought my first my oracle deck, tarot deck, got into moonology, and the very beginning of me saying yes to me and what I was curious about. And then I believe soon thereafter, I don't even know how I came across it, how it came into my sphere, but I found Kundalini Yoga,
Oh.
right? And this powerful practice that I still love today, and I'm sort of cycling back to and um, getting back into now, which I love. But that's something I've heard within that practice is that the practice finds you when you're ready. Have you found
Oh,
something similar on your journey?
absolutely. I mean, for me, I've taken access conscious bars, and that was one thing. And then I took another thing where it was IET, working with the angels. And over the years, when you do all these things and working with essential oils, aromatherapy, all these things kind of flourish together and mold. So that I think that's the gift within itself, is when you have these opportunities, they evolve and they make you, well, they don't make you, they heighten and elevate you more. And I think that's where like the oracle card, it's like I now can do a flame reading. I can even did a teacup reading the other day, and I'm just this is like self-taught, but I feel like this is also ancestral. I feel like that's another big piece, because the ancestors, like there's generation to generation, and I'm just allowing this energy to come in and be who is meant to be authentically.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Sorry, I cut out at the end
Oh, yeah.
there.
But yeah, so for myself, working working with the angels, that's, it's just tapping in and listening to the messages, and that's really amazing. But the new thing that's been working with me is working connection with the cosmos. Like that's something I really wanted to share, because I had a connection, it was, at my house where, I had three bath towels hit me from the back, and they swirled around together. It was like 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. And then in my ear on the left side, I heard a whoosh like that. And I was like, okay, I've never heard that or seen that or felt that. But the weird thing is, I didn't have that fear. So this is what I always suggest. If something like this happens now, because we're elevating and connecting, don't put that fear in it, because that's when things can change. But I just allowed that process. I engaged it. I was like in like whoa feeling, but I was like embracing the energy of like, okay, this is this is happening. This is happening now.
Yeah, and I'm curious how you and if you help people on their spiritual awakening because, one thing I found for me, I've been blessed to listen to my own internal guidance system, to trust myself, to if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out how to get it done. And I support so many people who the question comes up all the time. Oh, I want to know how to distinguish what's my intuition and how to follow that and what's my ego and this and that. And they're in this internal struggle, right? And discerning, going through this process, discerning, how do I know what's right for me? Or am I listening to somebody outside of myself? Am I taking someone else's advice and not necessarily considering or even asking myself? This always baffles me. And so I'm curious if you've come across this as well. But again, I can recognize that I have that strength. So it could just be that perspective in me. But it's like they're not even asking themselves the question to see how they would respond. Have
Oh,
you seen anything like this?
well, of course. And I always kind of go back to working with a healthy ego, because, when you get these nudges, sometimes you don't realize they're actually coming. You don't listen, you don't pay attention. And so that's when the ego will kind of step over. But if you put into play of a healthy ego, then that way you're acknowledging the fact that, yes, you may have a bit of pushback, but tap into yourself, lean into exactly who you are, and allow the healing to happen. Because once you step into that alignment of pathway, it's like the magic just happens. And that's why I created different things. Like I started doing friendship healing circles, new moon, full moon. I've been doing this for over 30 some years, but again, nobody understood, who I am and what that was all about. But luckily having like soul minded friends, that's kind of gave me courage. And now I have even more courage to step out and then help and heal and do what is best for all. And it is tough because we put those emotions in, and there's a lot of people put in fear, and that's the thing, put like more into like love, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think. But using the tools with using the pendulum, I find that's able to help with working with helping with aligning and asking those questions as well.
Yeah, and I found there are so many tools, right? And for me, the thing is, they all work. They all work for someone out there. And so it's not a matter as we're looking for someone who's just beginning their journey and trying to dive into their own intuition and
Yeah.
their own inner voice and authenticity. It's not about finding the best or how someone else practices. I think it's more a matter of diving into your own curiosity and leaning into that thing that you want to try, that thing that's standing out to you,
Yeah.
because that's the thing for you. And in my journey and a lot of my clients' journey, I found that the same is for them, that if they follow that little nudge to dive into yoga or dive into meditation, just
Mhm.
listen to it and show the fuck up,
Mhm.
then they'll get that outcome that they're searching for, that thing they're longing for, whether it's an emotion or improved health or better relationships or to let go of chronic pain, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It's just so fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. And I think with doing, like, having the background as a Reiki master and, intuitive healer and all these things that I've learned throughout the years, I find that if you trust and even trust me in helping others, that kind of thing, or like helping each other is what I feel is important. But really, it's important to understand that I'm just here to assist. You have to do the work. And I think that's the big thing. When someone reaches out to you for any type of energy work, they expect miracles, but you have to do the work within. And that's the thing. We're here as a vessel to help, a conduit to help, but it's all within their own soul to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
and the funny thing is, for me, I'm really seeking into more of a starseed family, and that's kind of where I'm finding my soul tribe. It's a whole new feeling for me, but I'm understanding more and more, and the connection is so powerful for me that I actually had something. I don't know if it's really neat to share, actually. Camper trailer, about a month ago, there was like this cool imprint on the window, but it wasn't something that a human could do. So I call it kind of like a DNA circle. It's like a circle crop imprint on the, because you can only see it in the mist of the camper trailer. So, and the cool thing is, when you look at this picture, it's like a circle, and then there's like all these like intricate circles that are so perfect, and then there's like a kind of like a 2 finger and then 3 fingers. So it was a 3 finger um kind of being that created this. That's all I know. And so my goal is to kind of really dig deep and find out the message. And it's interesting because someone had shared to me, it's almost like a combination code. So say if you have a code where you turn to the right, and you have like you have a kind of like a, maybe like a number, and then you turn it to the, like, you kind of bounce out. So it's almost like the message is, it's encoded. And the weird thing is, I keep thinking peace. Like, that's every time now I think of something, I think of peace. So if we implement peace more to ourselves and to the world, I think that's going to help elevate all of us into more of a high frequency. So I think the message is, for me, is to kind of really dig deep, tap into exactly where our purpose is and what we are meant to do right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's fascinating how much power we have to, one, connect with our own innate wisdom and lean into that and sort of find our own answers. And so it can be something like, I had a client who um, wanted to get into writing, and she connected a lot with the Pleiadian star seeds, which I don't know a whole lot about star
I'm
seeds, so you might
I'm
have
just
more
learning.
wisdom to
I
share.
love it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm slowly learning over time, but that's what she wanted to lean into, and it's curious, and well, it's interesting rather, how like little signs and synchronicities will pop out to you to encourage you to like keep following that trail, right? It's like it starts as a thought within ourselves sometimes that we barely admit to ourselves. Certainly, probably it hasn't escaped our lips. We haven't shared with anyone else. But then you see like a social media post about it, or one of your friends, or you listen to a podcast and you hear someone talking about Pleiadian star seeds or something, or she had her oracle cards in deck, and then that pops out, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, hello, yes, please just give into that nudge and start
Hmm.
writing or channeling or seeing what that process is like for you. And I like to encourage people to experiment, like consider it a fun experiment. Even in my healing sessions with people, I'm constantly saying, stay open and curious, right? Maybe we'll find an answer, maybe we won't, but take some of that pressure off. Just stay open and curious and be playful. Consider it an experiment, right? Take some of this pressure off of doing it right or having to know, or having to do anything necessarily, because I'm sure right, so much with this energy work and enlightenment and being on a spiritual path, excuse me, is being open
Yeah.
to receive
And
and simply just being the answer can come to you. You can
Well,
attract what you want
it's
and what you
actually,
need.
I just realized even by you sharing that right away, I actually, this week ago, when I woke up in the morning, I heard the kind of, it's a communication again. It was I'm gonna just kind of share it. It's like a form of light language, but it was communication through, I for sure, a being, a cosmo type being. um it's kind of, it was like a clicking noise, like that. So it happened actually when I woke up twice. And then the day before, I heard something like that, but it wasn't in my energy. It was in the next room where my dog sleeps. So again, there's definitely, it's there, things are happening. And I think if you embrace it and allow the connection to the Pleiadians, they're very playful. When you see the color blue, you think of Pleiadians. Arcturians are more in the green realm. And so it's all connected. Like I believe that if you're just allowing the healings to process, and again working with the moon, I think that's a big thing for all of us, because, and the stars, like just being outside, like that to me is so healing.
Yeah, it's incredibly healing. And I love that you mentioned the Arcturian star seeds as well, because that's something that's come up for me just very recently, right? Within last week, I started getting back into Kundalini yoga and wanting to devote myself back to my practice, because as some of you listening and catching the replay might know, right, we're in a huge eclipse season, we're in Libra season,
Yes.
and we're unlearning, right? Putting everyone first, putting everyone else's needs first, putting others' expectations first, and sort of forgetting about ourselves. And so, right, I got to show up to do the work I preach about all the time and show up for me and what I love. And like I mentioned, Kundalini yoga is one of those things. And then slowly thereafter, I'm having this like epiphany of, oh, I'm having so many similar experiences to that when I had my first big spiritual awakening that I talked about earlier, first following my passions and buying my first tarot deck, etc., in 2017. And so staying open and curious to that, I'm like, okay, what is this? There's a cycle. Okay, I'm witnessing it. Okay, that's interesting how these certain emotions, certain experiences, certain happenings, certain passions are really reigniting in a very, very similar way. So I throw out the question, okay, let me see what I can find out, to people I know in this community who talk about these things, right? And I didn't necessarily get an answer from them, but eventually, before the end of the week, I got my answer, which was, for me, what was happening around this time? What was happening around mid-October, right? 6 years ago now. Is there something like out in the stars and the
Yep.
planets? What's going on?
Yep.
And what I came across was the Arcturian Gateway, um, which Arcturia, or I don't know, I'm new to this,
Okay.
is a star, right? That's like 25 times larger than our sun. And so around that time, mid-October, I guess, it aligns with the sun, and there are these huge light flares and things, which makes it easier for that sort of communication to be received.
Mm.
And so that was sort of fascinating. So I'm like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah,
So that's a beautiful synchronicity
I
also,
love,
to like,
yeah,
okay, thank you, universe. Thank you. I got my answer. Okay, now I can go somewhere with this.
I love that. And again, for myself, I actually, I found that the other day. I just went outside and I was looking at the energy of the sun and the rays and the light codes. So if we actually take in these energies and understand that there's messages in them, and closing your eyes and just breathe in, and I mean, it's so powerful. I don't know if anyone realizes the connection that we have and how powerful we actually are. We just have to allow it to process and then see, and then the sprinkle magic comes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, I think one of the most important things that we can do, whether we're just starting this journey or whether we've been practicing it for years and years and years, is to lean into those subtle energies and give ourselves the time and space to practice with them, to witness them, to observe them within ourselves and outside of ourselves. Um,
Oh,
I think that is just so expansive and can help with a lot of the things that we've talked about
oh,
today.
totally agree. And I think it's important to understand that, be patient, be kind. And my goal for myself is a self mastery. Like, I have like these huge goals, and I wish and I hope that everyone will take in the love and know that we're all connected, and it's all energy, it's all frequency. And once you start connecting with yourself and understanding that you have it's all within you, right? So it is pretty magical. And I mean, I'm actually I'm so excited. Like, I started a podcast, and I only started in April, and I have 600 views already, and that's a new thing for me, to get out of my comfort zone. So that's why I say, like you say, if someone, like one of your clients said, started writing, well, I do have that passion of I want to start writing my book too. Like, after my father passed, like, his communication was, the minute he passed, he communicated with my whole family. And that's so amazing. Like, he physically, one time I went to my mom to go visit her, he actually physically opened the door to their apartment, and I was there, and I was like, hello, and nobody was there. And then I didn't realize my mom wasn't there at the time, and I walked out and the door like hit my face, and then I heard another door kind of slam type thing, and nobody was there. Like, nobody was there. And so my mom, like, there's so many things. Like, my dad like pushes things, like little statues, like a little stick that he had repaired because he was a Mr. Fix It. So it, like, the next morning, that stick was like rolled way over, and like, I mean, the birds, the communication with spirit animals, like, I had a communication with, like, the night that my dad passed, the next day we ended up going out of town to pick something up, where it was more nature focused, and I had a snapping turtle on the road. Him and I had a full on eye contact. So these are so beautiful. And then this one's really cool. I had a vulture, actually, like a vulture bird was on this post, and I had stopped, and the bird and I communicated with each other too. So it's interesting when you do have that, when things happen, when you lose a loved one, that's when you see things in a different way. And I know for a fact that my dad is more of a galactic family. So that's where I'm seeking that star seed, because I know the connection with my father on the earth plane is now a galactic. And I know it sounds a little bit out of this world, but I know in my heart of hearts, that's what is truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can dive into that again and do like another cosmic tea
For
time
sure.
chat around that. Because I
Absolutely.
think there are a lot of people who are curious about that, and we can start to help make sense of some of these things and some of these topics and just illuminate it a little bit
For
for
sure.
anyone who's interested. But I want to respect everyone's
Yeah.
time and your time as well.
Sounds good.
Is there anything that you'd like to share, or certainly share how people can find you, how people can work with you?
For me, I'm just branching off. I have the podcast. It's called Spiritual Sparkle, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple, or Anchor. And it's kind of, I know you and me, we had a conversation on there, and I'm really excited for everyone to listen to that. And also, on Instagram, my company, it's called the Zen Hut, because I'm one of those people that just am like, I branch off into so many things, and the Zen Hut really resonated with me. So that's it. And I do online virtual healing, but in person if you live where I live.
Beautiful. Yes. Make sure to check Tan out, and I'll make sure to share her links and everything so you can easily connect with her in the comments. And later, I think this gets uploaded to YouTube as well.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Kaitlyn, and I really appreciate you, just so you know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and for anyone who's looking for a little bit more accountability to dive into spiritual practice, to connect to these subtle energies in your own subtle body so that you can give in to your own passions, your own desires, and start creating the life that you love. I invite you to join me in my membership. And so just drop a moon emoji in the comments if you're curious about that and are ready to start showing up for you. I would love to support you. Thank you again, Tan, for being here. Love connecting with you. And I think this may be the one of mini chats and
I know.
conversations like this
I
about
like to
these
dig
topics.
deep,
So.
and I want to hear more about your talents. I know you're so gifted. I'd like to hear more about your book. You know, I would like to write a book, so maybe down the road you can share some insight. I'd be so honored if that happened as well. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Happy Moon Manifesting. We'll chat soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.